And by the end of the week, the Liberals had bigger problems anyway, with a row over aid to Indonesian schools, causing all sorts of angst within the party. This morning, our program guest is one of the key independents, the member for New England, Tony Windsor. But before then, we'll check out the Sunday papers around the country. And before then, Andrew, we might have a quick look at the magazines and what they're saying. And the IPA Review, for example.
Oh, thank you very much.
And there it is, Andrew Bolt, the outsider, but for our purposes,
yes, false advertising. I'm here as an insider. What would I know?
Thank you for that. Well, look, so let's start with the fascinating piece on Andrew Robb this morning, who tells it as it is.
Well, Andrew Robb says that he's gone to Joe Hockey and told him frankly that he would like Joe Hockey's job. And I think this is just yet more evidence that Andrew Robb is forgetting that the job he really should be after is not Joe Hockey's or even Julie Bishop's. It is Penny Wong's as the alternative finance person. And this is leading to a destabilisation. There's something about Andrew Robb that has the smack of an old man in a hurry, and I think that's dangerous.
But he actually says, doesn't he, Annabelle, in the piece, that he has said this to Joe Hockey, to his face, and therefore he felt he could say so more publicly.
Yeah, I mean, everybody, I think, all week has been accusing Andrew Robb of backgrounding, and I guess maybe this is his kind of attempt at front-grounding. Look, I've never seen a week where there's more speculation about less organised objectives. There's a whole bunch of different people in the Liberal Party that are kind of gossiping about this and that, and most of it is about speculation about what other people are doing. Now, plenty of people will tell you that Andrew Robb is, manoeuvring for either Joe Hockey's job or Julie Bishop's job, or in some cases Tony Abbott's job. And this line that he's a man in a hurry, everybody will tell you that, oh, he turned 60 later this year, he doesn't want to die wondering. Not that he's likely to die at 60 anyway, but, there's this sort of idea that he's got to make a push now or, lose it forever. And there's something sort of refreshingly honest about this interview that he's given to the News Limited Sunday papers today, where he says, I feel great, because he's had this bout of depression that he's over. He's writing a book about conquering depression. I think, he's had some very courageous things to say about tackling that particular disorder. But it's all feeding into this kind of...
And of course, the most sinister sign of all that he's actually after some better job
don't say it.
is that he is determined to get fit. Getting fit is always a sign in politics. In Canberra, once you see people running up Black Mountain, once you see people doing their laps in a pool, you know that there is blood about to be spilt on the party room floor. Now, Andrew Robb has at least had the decency in the poolside photographs that appear today in News Limited publications not to give us a full frontal. We don't have the Speedo moment. That, I think, is when Joe Hockey and various other people should quake. We have only the head above water and we have the action swimming shot.
Not until we see the whole of the moon,
David, how this fits into the Victorian political sphere.
Oh, I do understand.
Henry Bolte, the Premier, was famously photographed in a dam up to his neck. We're quite modest around here, up to his neck in water.
And
Ted Baillieu, now the Premier, so it worked for him, also has been photographed often swimming, gave famously one of his first interviews after winning the election was at a pool. Again, decently, only up to his neck. That's how we do it.
There you go.
Sydney,
misrepresenting the situation again, because there are famous full frontal shots of Baillieu, and of course it was the Bolte shot of him in the dam that inspired Chairman Mao. Did you know that?
All right, well, look, Christopher Pyne was on television this morning. Obviously, he was asked about all of this. Here he is.
Look, I think all colleagues should have ambition. It would be a strange kind of political world if we didn't all have ambition. But what's important is focusing on our opposite numbers and working to remove the Labor Party, because it's a very poor government.
So are you disappointed Andrew Robb put that on the record?
Look, I don't know the circumstances of that interview. It could well be an old interview, for all I know. Let me make it absolutely clear. I not only do not want Julie Bishop's job, but if anybody else might think that they want it, they'll have to come through me first. The leadership team is 100% behind Julie Bishop and Tony Abbott, Eric Abetz and George Brandis, Joe Hockey and me as manager of opposition business. There isn't a piece of cigarette paper between any of us, and that's the way it's going to stay.
What do you make of that?
And of course, Christopher Pyne's keeping a pretty, low profile.
but the notion of Christopher Pyne as a ratio on the bridge, defending the leadership of the Liberal Party, is just so splendid. You can't explain why, but Christopher Pyne just is funny. He just is funny.
Well, he is to his critics. But look, the thing is, I find it really bizarre. You might recall there's a whole spate of interviews, of comment by senior political commentators about a week before the last news poll saying, Tony Abbott's this constant obstructionism is a one-trick pony show. And two people used that very phrase in the same pieces. And all this 1 week before, a news poll came out and said Tony Abbott's actually leading the coalition 52 to 48 over Labor, which is a very good result. I think there's some Liberals that are determined that if the opposition win under Abbott, that would be a worse outcome than if it won if it lost with them in a better position.
Well, I don't think there is.
I think it's disgraceful.
I think all of the movement and noise in the Liberal Party at the moment is, oddly enough, this is quite rare in leadership instability, is largely not to do with Tony Abbott. I think it's actually got to do with, who gets to be first reserve and second reserve.
And we'll go into that a little further on, but have a look at this vision during the week. This is a Liberal Party function inside Parliament House, and Andrew Robb turns up, and this seat has a sign on it, say, reserved for Julie Bishop. And he picks up the sign and Julie Bishop's notes and just sits down next to Tony Abbott. And then, of course, the deputy leader of the Liberal Party, Julie Bishop, then enters the room and takes the nearest seat and then has a look across and thinks, who's that sitting in my chair? Not the week to do it.